Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, the show in which we look at the players in a statistical and analytical way with the help of some expert insight to give you guys all the information about Arsenal's transfer targets this upcoming January window. Hello and thank you for joining us. As always, this is the first show we've done after hitting 28,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for continuing to show your support to myself and the channel, and of course all the regulars and the members that have come onto the channel. A massive shout out, of course, in particular to the members who continue to support this channel ridiculously so, and the community we've built here is just quite special, and I don't take it for granted whatsoever any day of the week. But more about that in tomorrow morning's show. Today we are here to talk about Dejan Kulusevski, the Swedish international and Juventus player that has been linked with a move to Arsenal in the upcoming January and summer windows. Reports of figures around the £30 million mark have been suggested, but with Juventus's interest and need for a striker, perhaps a swap deal involving Aubameyang could materialise in the next few weeks, one to keep your eye on. Now, I am not massively in the know about Dejan Kulusevski, but I do know a man who is. Richard Hall, who works for both Inter Milan and Fiorentina as a writer and has his own fingers in many Italian football experteering pies. I'm trying to think of how that sounds to you, but he just knows a lot about Italian football is what he does. He's a great lad as well, and do show him some love on Twitter. You can find him on Twitter at Ritual80, so please do go give him a follow. But giving us all the insight in the world of Dejan Kulusevski is Ritual, so let's hear what he has to say.
It's difficult when you talk about Kulusevski because in Serie A, he's had quite a, I'm not going to say checkered career, but it's been one of circumstance at least. At Parma, you know, when he broke onto the scene, he was seen as probably the standout player of that campaign. Only, I think, 4 goals in Serie A. You know, he wasn't putting them in left, right and centre, but the difference he made, his speed, his ability, his directness, and just his penchant to do something just a little bit different, to think differently from a lot of the players around him, especially at a team like Parma, who were struggling obviously at the time. Of course, they're now relegated to Serie B. And it was enough to make Juventus think, this is our gamble. This is our man who we want, our man who we believe we can bring on and take to the next level. And Juventus have a habit of doing that. They also did it with Federico Chiesa as well. And this is where sometimes Juventus get it right and sometimes they get it wrong. Now, I said about victim of circumstance, and I think it's really, really important here because obviously Cristiano Ronaldo was at Juventus and they became Cristiano Ronaldo-centric. Teams do. It wasn't just Kulusevski who suffered from this. Paulo Dybala also, you know, who was the difference maker for the old lady, started to be marginalised. Kulusevski was marginalised in some respects. But his time at Juventus has been sporadic in the sense of his form has been sporadic. It's been sometimes brilliant, sometimes not. So this season, everyone expected that with the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo going, that, you know, Max Allegri back in the club may bring the best out of him. Again, I'll go back to victim of circumstance because Max Allegri, what he's got to do with Juventus, and this is paramount to why it's very difficult for me to judge whether Kulusevski is either an absolute bargain at sort of 35, 40 million, whatever the price would be, or if, you know, he's never possibly going to reach that potential. Because what Max Allegri has to do at Juventus at this moment in time is to stop the rot. They need 2 transfer windows. They've got an ageing back line and some midfield that's not there. They need a centre forward. They're missing Ronaldo, believe it or not. Even though he was probably not great for the team. And so what you've got is Max Allegri coming back and saying, listen, whilst there's proactive coaches like Simone Inzaghi, Spalletti, Pioli, all the different ones who are playing attacking football, Juventus are going, no, we need to go back and stop the rot. Make us difficult to beat. That's what Allegri does for the start. So is he really getting the best out of some players? No, he's not at the moment. His focus isn't on how best to utilise Kulusevski or Chiesa. You know, even though they need goals, it's really stopping the rot, and they're not playing the best football at the moment. We've seen the results have been very poor. So it's very difficult for a player like Kulusevski to really get into his rhythm at the moment at Juventus. Now, if you're looking at, does he need a new challenge? I don't know. I don't know if he does. I don't know if Juventus may be the right place for him because, he's still got a lot to prove. He's still, got to be worth his price tag, and he has in batches. For Arsenal, I think it would be an exciting move, but it'd be a gamble because, as I've said before, we don't really know who Kulusevski is. We've seen glimpses of him. We've seen the fantastic part of him, and we've seen him disappear a little bit. I think that the biggest problem, and before I did this, I spoke to some Juventus fans, so you don't just get my Milanese approach. And one of the Gentleman Ultras editor, Emmett Gates, is a massive Juventus fan. And I asked him, and he said, for me, Kulusevski is just playing in the wrong team. And I think that's quite a good summary, because I think that if Kulusevski was the focus, and he was Arsenal maybe brought in and you plan around him, then I think you could get the best out of him. If you marginalised him and bringing him on, just here and there, you're not going to get the best out of him. Don't expect loads of goals. It's not going to happen, but that doesn't mean he can't create them. And it doesn't mean he couldn't become a player he could do in the future. He's got all the natural assets. I know the Swedish national team are banking a lot on him. So, yeah, it'd be interesting I'd be fascinated to see him at Arsenal. I think it's a gamble, but possibly a gamble worth taking.
A massive thank you to Rich. You can find him, as I say, on Twitter at Rich080, and you can find a lot of his work through the Gentleman Ultra, which is a fantastic Italian football-focused website. And there's lots of news and information and breakdowns and opinions on Italian football there, so do check it out. And you can find Rich's work, as I've already mentioned, on his Twitter feed, writing for Inter and Fiorentina as well. Very much in the world of Italian football. But interesting to hear plenty more about Dejan Kulusevski. I've put a poll into the live chat. Make sure you drop a vote on that. Would you like Arsenal to sign? But maybe you need some more information. If that is indeed the case, you'll be very happy to know we're going to go through plenty of Kulusevski's statistics now, starting off by making some comparisons between him and some other players in the team. Saka, Pepe and Martinelli, of course, are the other players that play in the wide positions. Kulusevski can feature both on the right and left, and has featured even in the middle as a second striker for Juve at times and previously for Parma. So I thought it'd be interesting to see how he compares this season. Premier League statistics averaged across the 90 minutes for all of those players. In terms of goals, not scored in the league so far this season, same as Nicola Pepe. Neither of them have scored. XG-wise, he's not expected to score either, because he's simply not taking the shots that are determining or increasing that XG. Not surprising to see Gabriel Martinelli's stats so impressive in that field. Moving on to shooting accuracy wise, he has one of the highest accuracies of the group at 33.3, same as Martinelli. Looking at the cluster of shots he takes, he tends to like to take them inside the box. Again, very similar to Martinelli. What's interesting when I noticed by putting this together about Martinelli's shooting map is that when Martinelli hits the target, he scores. In fact, every shot he's taken that's hit the target this season has gone in. All four of them on that map you can see there have indeed hit the target and gone in. The others that have missed the target, of course, haven't resulted in a goal. Saka has shot the most this season, but isn't the most frequent across the 90 minutes. That falls on Pepe's shoulders, but Pepe with a 31.3% accuracy is the third lowest in terms of accuracy on this list. Touches into the box, he does like to get in there with 4.4 touches in the box per 90. Slightly less than that Bukayo Saka, a little bit more than Martinelli, but not as many as Nicolas Pepe at 5.03. In regards to dribbling, he is more successful than Nicolas Pepe. In fact, Pepe's dribbling stats are surprisingly weak this season, 27.3%. And these, as I say, are averaged across 90 minutes. They aren't done per game, even when he's come off the bench. Whenever he's got involved, Pepe, in a dribble, it's not gone particularly well. In comparison to, say, Saka at 60.2% success rate and Martinelli, even more impressive at 62.1%. But Kulusevski tends to dribble more so than the other players on this list, with the highest frequency at 7.42. In terms of offensive duels, how the players are on the ball, holding off opponents, he does get involved in the most offensive duels at 15.59, and a 35.5% success rate of winning those offensive duels is pretty good in and around the area of Martinelli. Interestingly, Bukayo Saka, despite his light frame, winning the most offensive duels at 40.8%. Pepe again down the lower end of the scale at 23.8%. Aerial duels, he is a lot better in the air than what you would consider for a winger, winning 28.6% of those duels, 2.64 duels being competed for. But Martinelli shining there, 4.1 aerial duels, 26.7% of those being won. But interestingly, Pepe coming out with the highest frequency. I say surprisingly, the amount of times a goal kick is launched in the direction of Pepe when he's on the field, maybe it's not so much of a surprise. We do tend to see Leno and Ramsdale target the Ivorian when he's playing with long goal kicks in the hope that he will win and relieve some pressure on the team. Saka, probably the weakest here in terms of the lowest frequency, 1.91, but does win the most, 33.3%. So make of that what you will. In terms of passing, 84.8% passing accuracy is the second highest on our comparison chart here. He does pass fairly frequently in 24.76, and in a team like Juventus, where he gets plenty of opportunities to pass the ball, that's not very surprising. Coming out on top, though, is Pepe in terms of passing accuracy at 86.8%. But when it comes down to where those passes are being directed and how accurate they are into the box, Kulusevski comes out very well in a creation way. 73.3% of the passes he makes into the box reach their target, which is by far and away the best offering on this list, closely followed by, slightly behind, followed by Saka and Pepe around the 57%. And then Martinelli, not the type to be more creative. Martinelli, as we know, loves to drive into the box and get into the box with the ball and take a shot at goal. But to be fair to him, has been a bit more creative this season. So maybe those stats are a little bit elusive around the Brazilian. Defensively, and how the players are coping when they're trying to track back, 10.31 defensive duels is the highest percentage, or rather frequency, of duels on our list. 52.4% though is the lowest success rate, but he is getting involved with plenty of defensive duels. He is getting back and tackling. Actually, the most successful is Bukayo Saka at 64.6%, followed closely by Gabriel Martinelli at 63.3% of those defensive duels being won. In terms of losses, unsurprising to see Pepe again, highest on our losses list, 13.41. And then Kulusevski and Martinelli coming out the lowest in the 9-point range. Saka, 10.55, but lowest percentage of those for Saka in his own half. Highest percentage of losses in his own half falls again, unfortunately, to Pepe. And in terms of recoveries, which is the last thing we're looking at, 43.3% recoveries in the opponent's half of Pepe is the lowest on our list, where we move up the other end of the spectrum to Kulusevski and Saka in the 67s and 68% of recoveries happening in the opponent's half, showing that pressing game that they both possess and they're asked to do. Unsurprising to see Martinelli also in the 50% and up there too, which is really interesting, I think, when he comes out in these statistical comparisons. Both Kulusevski and Pepe have not really played for their senior sides this season at all. Like, Pepe's not really played for Arsenal under Arteta in the most latter stages of the season that we've had so far. Kulusevski, again, has been underused under Massimiliano Allegri. Not really been used as much by him either. But of the two, Kulusevski is still managing to outshine Pepe in more of those metrics, despite both of them failing to score. So the big question is that he's not really competing for the place with Saka and Martinelli. But does Kulusevski give you more for this team than Pepe does? Can he come in as a depth option to compete with Saka and with Martinelli? He seems to be able to do that more so than what Pepe has shown. Pepe's losses are concerning. His dribbles are concerning. His creation is concerning. But Kulusevski has better metrics in those areas, and his pressing game looks better as well. I think there are better options out there than Dejan Kulusevski. Personally, I think there are options that we can go and get that would probably suit what Arteta is looking for, that are showing more week in, week out. For their club size, Noah Lang is one of those options that we were linked to previously. I'm not sure that Kulusevski is the option that we should be looking for. It would be, as Rich says, a big risk. And so therefore, I do think we should probably be looking elsewhere if we are inevitably eventually going to be replacing Pepe in the team. Let's see how the poll's going in regards to, do you want Kulusevski? Nearly 100 votes on this. If you haven't voted already, please make sure you jump into the YouTube and drop a vote on our poll, whether or not you would like to see Kulusevski sign. 57% at the moment saying yes, 43% saying no. So actually a slight lean towards you guys favouring a move for the Swedish international. Very, very interesting. Do drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Matt says system and lead doesn't really suit Pepe. He needs to be played nearer the striker and on the counter like he was playing at Lille. Sai says Pepe has been great in periods, just not his most recent one. But he says the stats for Kulusevski are not impressive to me. I want a wide forward who is a goal threat, which is very, very true. Michael says if we paid peanuts for Pepe, he would be worth keeping, but he's our biggest signing ever, so he can't sit on the bench. We have to get something back for him as well. Olivier says, how would you know Pepe has not played? Pepe can still do it later. Look at Mahrez. He only started going at City. Don't agree with that. Mahrez was very, very good at Leicester and signed for Manchester City as a part of a big attacking core and has continued to really mature and develop an age. So I don't think that comparison quite works, Olivier. Pepe, I think, just doesn't suit the club that he's at and I think would suit somewhere else. And hopefully, if he does move, flourishes. I just don't think it's going to be at Arsenal. But I would not be looking to Kulusevski to replace Pepe. So there you go. Interesting stuff from everybody in the chat box. It is only a shorter show today because I'm about to start shift for tonight's game against Sunderland. We did a preview for that yesterday. So make sure you've watched our preview show. Drop a like, subscribers. So we massively thanks to everyone who's been tuning in. We hit 28,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for the continued support. You can expect more of these breakdowns in the weeks to come as we get linked to more players more vehemently in the media watches and the market. And you can join me tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. to bring you the next episode of the Arsenal Transfer Show, of course, and a reaction to tonight's game against Sunderland. See you again very, very soon, guys. And as always, up the Arsenal.